Back in the 2000s, every person I knew had a dedicated GPS navigation unit. So why have multiple devices when you had Google Maps on your phone with turn-by-turn navigation, which was better and cleaner than standard dedicated GPS units? Now we live in 2024. Most cars can connect to a bigger phone and offer navigation on a bigger screen. Not every vehicle can really do wired or wireless CarPlay, but having a phone up on an air vent for navigation kind of be distracting. There is one device I know of is the king of dedicated CarPlay devices with a fully laminated display, 700 nits of peak brightness, and is locked in at 60 frames per second. This offers enough to really turn heads. Hello and welcome back, it's V, let's get started. Like always, this was sent to me for review. I was not paid to review this. This is my own thoughts and only my own thoughts. No one gets to see this review before it drops on YouTube. This video should have been released a few months ago. I'm getting there to get all my old stuff out. Right now, you can pick this up off Amazon for about $250. This is a standalone device for wireless CarPlay or Android Auto. This is the CarPod Go T3 Pro. It just rolls off the tongue. Not every vehicle will offer wired CarPlay, and having a phone dangle off an air vent for navigation can be quite distracting, especially in 2024. GM, you can't do wired CarPlay or Android Auto anymore, so shout out to GM. You should really be sponsoring this video. Phones tend to be smaller. People might be looking for notifications, phone calls, tweets, whatever, and really taking their eyes off the road. So having a dedicated device primarily for navigation, having a barrier that separates the phone part from navigation is less distracting. Most of these types of devices tend to be very underwhelming, very poor hardware. The software is atrocious, but not here for the T3 Pro. It runs a skinned version of Linux. It has its own custom software to accommodate everything. I've reviewed a few of these in the past, and the worst part has always been the terrible user interface. It just offers layers and layers and layers of junk software, and the connected CarPlay function, it's been a poor experience in my opinion. In this type of product category, the T3 rules the market. It has the best software and the best hardware. Consider this the Ferrari of dedicated CarPlay devices compared to, let's say, a 68 Camaro. Inside the box, you have the T3 Pro, which it is big. It's not really quite heavy. It only weighs about 2 pounds. There is an adapter for Tesla vehicles. There is a car charger with about a 20-foot cable. It's used more so to go around the interior of the vehicle, hide the cables underneath everything, so cables really aren't hanging everywhere. There are a few different mounts for this device for either the dashboard or the windshield. This is your standard arm mount. Most dashboard devices have something very similar to this. Some vehicles might be a little bit more rounded for the dashboard, so they try to do the one-size-fits-all approach, try to accommodate every type of car out there. They give you a USB in the box for OTA updates, which I've done. I haven't really noticed much of a difference. A Bluetooth aux cable, which will give your vehicle Bluetooth. If it doesn't have it, then you can connect to a phone, to the T3, so you can play audio wirelessly. Not every older vehicle will have Bluetooth, so this is a very good cheap fix. A 3-foot headphone cable, adhesive strips for cable management. There is an optional backup camera in the box. I already have this on my vehicle, so I don't really need to install this. Typically, the camera has to be hooked up to the taillight for power, and then it has to run up to the T3. It's not ideal, but it does give older vehicles modern technology. Besides that, you have the instructions, how you hook everything up. My vehicle already has wired CarPlay, Bluetooth. I don't really need most of these accessories. Any older vehicle from, let's say, 2010 might need more of these accessories. So after doing some creative detective work, my vehicle does not have an aux port, weirdly. Most of these accessories I will never use, but the car charger, the arm bracket are the common ones for most vehicles. The USB-C cable is really long and can be hidden on top of most vehicles. I've mentioned this is the Ferrari of CarPlay devices. It really shows. It really is the small details that matter here. The back plate is magnetic, which is stupid strong. It allows to easily remove the T3. Let's say you're done driving, you could put it into a glove box out of sight. This is the best feature here because it's one less thing people can see when the car is parked and could be potentially stolen. You don't have to fiddle with any switches, knobs. You can easily remove the back magnetic cover, and that's really it. I've had my car broken into a few times while living in Toledo. audio, and people will break into your shit for pennies. It's the smartest thing here. You pull it apart, you put it in a glove box, you don't have to do anything else. It's really the small things that matter. On the side, it has a wider range of ports. There are two Type-C ports on the side, one for power and one to connect to a phone if you want to do wired CarPlay. There are a few holes all the way around for the microphones. You have a headphone jack, a AVIM port just for the backup camera. Booting everything up takes about 5 seconds. The UI is very basic and very clean looking. That's not really a bad thing. It runs a custom version of Linux. Some of the budget $100 versions have like a slow and buggy interface. The software is very slow. The resolution of those are like 1060 by 500, and the viewing angles are from like a laptop from 2005. Here, the screen is laminated like a cell phone, so there's no gap in between the screen and the panel. Think of like an older iPad compared to the new ones, so it looks like one completed piece. This thing is locked in at 60 frames per second, so no matter whatever you're doing, whatever app you're in, it will always look pretty smooth and fluid with the animation. The resolution here is 1920 by 720. It has an IPS screen. The text and the images will look pretty crisp overall. The viewing angles here are really good overall. The text, the colors, the maps, everything looks pretty crisp. It does get up to 700 nits of peak brightness, which I mean, it's not the brightest, but for this type of device, it makes it extremely viewable in direct sunlight. Usually screens need to be about 300 nits indoor to be viewable and at least 700 nits to be viewable in direct sunlight outside. The iPhone 15 can get up to about 1000 nits on average with HDR turned on, which is about 2000 nits of brightness for comparison. The interface is clean, it's basic, but it gets straight to the point. This device is really good for people who are not tech savvy. With the general overview here, the settings and navigation is really basic, especially for those who are driving, they need to make an adjustment. With the T3, the settings are very basic. The icons are big and simple. There's really nothing too in-depth here. You don't have to click 100 times just to get to the options. Always remember to keep your eyes on the road. In the settings, there's not a whole lot. Time and date really. There are settings for CarPlay and Bluetooth. This is very basic and simple. It works really well here because this device is really meant to be a standalone CarPlay companion in vehicles whose entertainment system can't really do modern stuff. This can do wireless CarPlay, Android Auto, connecting media through the car speakers. That's really about it. When this is connected, it does take a few seconds to boot up. Wireless CarPlay connects automatically, and to set it up is very simple. Audio can be connected from Bluetooth, FM player, aux port, or connecting it directly with USB-C. In the settings, you have the language, time zone, which can be adjusted. You can save up to 5 different Bluetooth devices for wireless connectivity. The brightness can get up to 700 nits. The wallpapers can be changed. The startup logo can be changed to whatever automaker badge you want. I have Honda, so I use Honda. This can also be set up for left or right-handed people. You know, that 60 frames per second is really nice here. The animation is pretty quick and smooth. Like Android, the audio can be customized for different levels for like notifications, music, or phone calls. The only real issue here I have with this device is switching audio sources. It can be done in settings, not through the car, so switching from Bluetooth to aux port requires the device to restart. It does take a few seconds for it to reboot. If doing this while driving, it's a bit more distracting than it should be. One last thing, touching the home screen on the top right corner, it will switch from daytime to nighttime mode. It changes the brightness so it's brighter in the daytime and darker at nighttime, less light shining on anyone's face. When connecting to wireless CarPlay or Android Auto, it's pretty seamless. Go to Bluetooth on your phone, find the device, and connect to it. It might take about a minute to connect to it, but that's about it. When connecting at startup, it only takes a few seconds. Everything works like normal wired CarPlay. I haven't really noticed much in the way of lag or stuttering. With that 60 frames per second, it runs quite smooth. When playing audio, there is a small 3-second delay because it is being sent wirelessly. It really only affects anyone while playing videos. I haven't really noticed any issues with phone calls. They seem to work fine. At this time, I don't have an Android phone, so I can't really test out Android Auto. I do have an iPhone for CarPlay, and overall it works pretty well, so I would assume it would be about the same with Android. Overall, this works really well and hands down the best standalone CarPlay device. The best thing about this is a simple UI, and that screen is really good. Like, the screen is very viewable in direct sunlight, so when switching audio sources, it cannot be done with the car. It has to be done internally through the software of the T3. That does get sort of annoying. This device has 4 methods of connecting to a car to a phone. You have the aux port, which my car does not have. You can be connected over Bluetooth, FM radio, or connected directly with the USB-C port on the side. The internal
external speakers are a little bit washed out.
I've been put in a really difficult position here. I love my ROG Ally. It's my go-to handheld PC.
They do sound passable. They don't really sound the best. Good for a podcast, not for live music. So switching between audio sources does cause the device to reboot. It is a little bit annoying, but the boot up is fairly quick. Like playing any audio source wirelessly from a phone to a device, there will always be a couple second delay. I've had that with CarLink, and even with this one, it's pretty standard. With the T3, it allows it to be more of a medium, like a hub to connect a phone to car speakers, connects everything together depending on the vehicle. If you can't have aux port or Bluetooth, it really just depends. For what it offers, it works really well for the car connection. I even tried out the FM transmitter for a day trip, and overall, even that worked quite well. For what it's worth, this is a pretty nice device. It is a little bit more expensive than some of the other ones out there, but it offers more features not found anywhere else. You have a big 8.9-inch screen, you have 700 nits of brightness, consistent 60 frames per second, a 720p screen with really good viewing angles, a laminated display, and a UI you can only love. Wireless CarPlay and Android Auto works really well. A simple and intuitive UI. The best thing I like about this device is the detachable magnetic back cover. Granted, the audio from the speakers are lacking. Most of the time, I do play the audio through my vehicle. The constant rebooting every time I switch the audio source is a mild inconvenience, but the boot up is only a couple seconds. Here, I think the pros really outshine the cons, and this might be the best standalone CarPlay device out on the market. For anyone who owns an older vehicle and wants to give it more modern features without spending thousands and thousands of dollars, this is the all-in-one solution. So like always, it's V, stay classy.